Hello, this is Christian Lyle for CS5453, and this is the video for the system compromise walkthrough. Since I'm a graduate student, this will be a walkthrough of the system that I have developed along with my partner, Kolby Kinkade. Now, to explain a little bit about the system configuration and goals of this system we have set up, I'm going to go over to VirtualBox. So there are two machines in this vulnerable system scenario. One is a Kali Linux machine called Kali Attacker, and the other is an Ubuntu server called Pentest Target. These machines are connected through an internal network that allows them to communicate with each other, but not have full internet access. Additionally, these machines have static IPs, and for the purpose of this video, which will be important, is that the pentest target has an IP of 192.168.110. And the goal for this vulnerable system is from the Kali attacker machine, which has Kali Linux tools to perform cybersecurity actions or like pen testing actions, is to gain privileged access to the pentest target system and retrieve a root flag. So from the Kali attacker, we can see 168.110. We can see that this system is online. This is us pinging the pentest target. All right, now to start with the actual attempt to compromise and gain access to the pentest target. And the walkthrough will start from here. So we're going to start with an nmap scan, as we do in these scenarios. And we're going to scan using the SV and SC flags to see what services might be running on this target. And this will just take a second. All right, so through our scan of the target, we can see there are 4 open ports. Let me take this into full screen mode, since we'll be in here the rest of the time. So we can see at port 21, which is the port for FTP that's running the FTP service, port 22 running the SSH service, port 53 running a bind server, and port 80 running an HTTP server. And so we're going to look for anything interesting. One thing we can see here, FTP anon, so anonymous FTP login is allowed to this FTP surface on the target. And we can also see that the FTP service is hosting a file called admincred.txt. That sounds pretty important. And since we know anonymous login is enabled, we can use the -a flag with FTP, and we can try to log in. I'm going to make a separate terminal for later. And we're connected because we don't have to specify a password since anonymous login is enabled. I'm going to see the contents of this, and there's an admincred.txt. So let's get that file. And we can go back, see here. And in this, so we got this admincred.txt. Let's examine what's within it. You can see it's an admin, so by the text, it's an admin configuration file used for account recovery, and it's got a password here. You know, that's great, right? We've got this password, but it doesn't exactly look like a human readable, or I should say a password that a human would input normally. So we're going to examine this. I'm going to copy it. And let's make use of hash ID, which is a tool that can tell us if something like this string might be a hash. And we can see it's analyzing it. It's giving us many different hash types that this string might be. So now what we're going to do is let's pass this hash to a file. We're going to call it pass hash. So that'll be there. And now what we can do is we can use a tool like Hashcat, which, as it says in the name, it's good for cracking hashes. So it's got all these different options, and what's important to us is we're going to run it with A0, which is the straight attacking mode for Hashcat, and -M0, and that is going to specify the hash being tested as an MD5 hash. We're going to pass it pass hash that we just created, and we're going to use the standard rocku.txt word list, which is commonly made use of in these scenarios with password cracking. Oh, I typed hash instead of hashcat. All right, that'll start running, and we see it. This hash, so it cracked. Oops. And this hash corresponds to the plaintext password Dark Angel. Okay, so we've got a password that can be used in some way on the machine. And just going back up a bit to remembering the Nmap scan that we did, we know that there's so like looking for any places we might be able to use this password, we know there's an HTTP server running on this. So, maybe there might be a login page on that HTTP server. So we're going to go to a browser, HTTP, and let's enter the IP of the machine. Okay, and we can see if we examine the browser, once we put in the IP, it's actually resolving to a link, or I should say an address of cyberstudy.com, but we're not able to access the web page. And what that tells us is that possibly the bind server on this target machine, it's trying to resolve the IP, but to cyberstudy.com, but we are not able to reach the web page. But this can be remedied by editing the host file on our Kali machine. We're going to edit this using sudo, and what this will do is it will allow the IP to resolve. So that when this page tries to get to cyberstudy.com, cyberstudy.com will resolve to the IP of the machine we're trying to reach. So it will actually be able to reach it. So let me input that again. And as you can see, we're actually able to reach a web page this time after editing the etc host file. And it's resolving properly. And it's going to take us to this website. It's saying it's a website for studying cybersecurity concepts and principles. And if we take a look around for anywhere we might be able to log in on this page, there isn't actually anywhere. So what we might need to do is take a deeper look and see if there's anything hidden on this web server where we might be able to log in. And what we can do for that is make use of GoBuster. So this is going to be a tool that does directory enumeration of something like a web server, and it might be able to help us identify hidden directories that we would otherwise not be able to plainly see on our target. So we're gonna run GoBuster in the dir mode for directory enumeration, and our target is going to be this HTTP server on this IP. And there's a common word list to enumerate directories with dirbuster, and it's in this dirbuster folder, common.txt. And if we run this, it's gonna enumerate through these directories, and we can see some things that we would otherwise have been unable to see before. We see this admin directory, and it's giving us this new link, same with images. So let's go back here to cyberstudy.com, and let's try entering that link we see over here. So with the IP, we're gonna navigate here, and it would normally redirect us to cyberstudy.com, but we're gonna add this admin directory at the end, and that will get us to a login page with where we can enter a password. Now we know the password. Let's try username admin. It's an admin login, right? We're gonna enter the password dark angel, and okay, that's gonna be invalid. What else might work? Let's see root. That also doesn't work. So what we're gonna need to do here, we're gonna take a deeper look at this page. We're gonna examine the page, inspecting it, so we can see the contents of the page. And what we can see down here is the admin username is contained within the inspected page. We're going to see it specified as master chief, capital master, capital chief. So let's try that. Master chief with password dark angel. And that's going to give us a successful login message. And we can see here we've obtained a root password, root access 2026 JP. And there's a hint here. I wonder what a versus FTPD root shell could get you. What can it get us, right? So we're gonna navigate back to our shell, and FTP, a root shell. So this time we're not gonna specify login with -a, because now what we're gonna try to do is log in with a root shell, root, and we're gonna make use of this password and see if it can get us in. So R00T at access 2026 JP. And we've successfully logged in through a root shell using FTP, the FTP connection to this target. And if we enumerate the contents of the directory, list them out, we can see this root.txt file. So let's try to get that back to our machine. We're gonna use get. It's gonna transfer back, exit FTP. We've got that root file here. And now we're gonna list the contents, and we can see we've got a captured root flag. And through this method, we have successfully gained access and escalated our privilege, logging in as root to the target, and we captured the root flag, completing the goals of the scenario. And that is one path that has been set up on this system to gain access and then exploit the system to obtain the root flag. There's actually another path that has been set up. If you knew about it, you might have caught it earlier. And so we're gonna start from the beginning of this attacking scenario again. We're gonna run nmap again and try to see something different we might be able to do to also gain access to the gain privilege access to this machine and obtain the root flag. So we're going to start with the nmap scan again, and we're going to examine the services. Now, the way in which we have scanned using nmap with the -sv and -sv flags, that's going to list out actually the versions of each service. Now, when you think of different versions of services, they might, have different features, but they can also have different vulnerabilities. And some versions of services might have vulnerabilities that are unique to them. And we can see the service versions for each of these services that are running. And something that can let you know what services are vulnerable or is the tool searchsploit. What searchsploit does is it's going to search through a local copy of the exploit DB that is saved on a system, and it can find, you can query it and find vulnerabilities. So what we're going to do, let's type in a service that we identify on this machine versus FTPD 2.3.4, and we're going to search that with searchsploit. And what we can see is there are specific exploits tied to this version, and they have to do with backdoor command execution. And backdoor command execution can allow us to gain privilege access to the machine. And this one is specified as a Metasploit backdoor command execution. So what we can do with that is we can access Metasploit through the MSF console. This will take a second to boot up. Starting Metasploit framework. Alright, and so we're in the Metasploit framework now, and the console will appear. And let's see what Metasploit has to say about FTPD versus FTPD 2.3.4. It has its own version of search, which pretty much also goes through exploit DB. And we can see here there's a exploit module associated with this version of versus FTPD, and that's also the same backdoor command execution. And through Metasploit framework, you can actually make use of these exploit modules to exploit systems. So we're going to use this exploit module. We can type in the name, or we can type in U0. I'll type it out for the sake of demonstration. And what this will do is it's going to take us into a different console, which is the exploit module console. So now we're in this console configuring the exploit module, and you can see the options to configure by typing show options and the settings of it. You got chost, cport, client access client port, you got proxies, rhost, target host. And what's important for us here is rhost is not currently set. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to set the target host. So set rhosts, and we're going to set that to our target IP. We can show options again, and we can see that that is now set. And once everything is set for the exploit module, we can run the exploit module by typing in exploit. And this will attempt to execute. And it might not work the first time, but now what we can, we can just run it again, and now it says it's found a shell, and a command shell session has opened. So, let's see, who am I? All right, and I'm root. Yeah, I've run this exploit and I've become root. Where am I currently? I'm in this directory. Let's see, is there a directory set? Let's try to cd to a root directory, and we can see those contents that we saw before once we logged in through FTP to the target machine. So we can cat root.txt again, and we can get the root flag again. So this was our advanced path that we set up for this target, and it required a little more background knowledge about that vulnerable service via versus FTPD 2.3.4. But if you know about that, you can actually have an easier time gaining access to this machine. So what we wanted to do is, show the different ways that you might be able to access a machine with different levels of knowledge or, exploration of a system. I hope you enjoyed watching this demonstration. Thank you very much.